Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. And this week, I was given the wonderful opportunity to be able to get to know a little bit more about ONLE and James West in general. So we're going to be talking to James, as I say, about networking, about his background, and also a little bit about the future of ONLE Network as well. So if you did enjoy this video and would like to see more from me and James in the future, if you want me to invite him back on, let me know. I'd love to have him back on and talk a little bit more about ONLE and where the updates will potentially be when and if that happens. So thank you ever so much for coming back and joining me once again. And yeah, I'm trying a new setup for the podcast. We're using my condenser microphone. We're using some of my videography kits. I'm here at the office, but hopefully the audio isn't too different, and I hope you still take value from the content. And yeah, I'll see you very, very soon. And make sure to be subscribed if you're new and you want to not miss the next episode of the podcast. But I'm now going to hand over to James to introduce a little bit more about who he is and what he does and why he does it.
So James West, ONLE Networking. I'm the co-founder of ONLE Networking. I was previously a journalist, magazine editor, went into building websites, social media, marketing. Networking's always weaved around everything that I've done. It is in my blood. I spend all of my time thinking about networking. It's quite sad. But yeah, what am I now? 45 years of age. I run ONLE with my wife. I met her at networking. I'm sure we'll get into that story. So I'm here to talk about networking, but I think networking not in that perhaps formalized way that people perhaps think. Networking is an event that you go to. It's not. Absolutely. And hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, firstly, really thank you for coming on and giving me the time to, sort of explore ONLE as well. I mean, I'm, I'll put on the record, I'm a member of ONLE. I've been a member for a month and a half, something like that. And, I mean, feel free to ask me any questions that you want to as well. But I mean, I think, let's start with the very basics of, from your side, what would you see as like people's want or people's need, or like why should people network in the first place?
Connection is the main word. Yeah, you need business, don't you? I mean, as a business owner, at some point you need conversations that lead to business. And it is a form of marketing, because let's face it, it's your voice and it's your face. So in some respects, if you're no good at that, you're going to struggle to market beyond through any other channel. But for me, networking, and again, I'm sure we'll talk about this, it brings a lot more. It's brought a lot more into my life than just I've gained tons of business from it. And I would say on the balance, I mean, certainly the years that I was doing websites, copywriting, social media, the vast majority of every piece of business I ever got came from networking. So mechanically, it always worked for me, but I got so much more from it. Support, camaraderie, the bit when you're working on your own and it's really bloody lonely. And to the point where I didn't realize how important that was until I ended up probably classic, quite ill, because I'm an outgoing person and I stuck myself in a room. Well, I was earning money, but I was desperately unhappy, and networking gave a connection, which I think is more important than ever now that we're doing so much business online.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from my experience, I mean, I've only known ONLE as an online networking tool or a networking group. I mean, how did you sort of start ONLE? I mean, did you have like a previous networking before? Like Lee, you talked about a little bit about, you did networking, but what made you come to the conclusion of actually, no, I want to run my own, right? I want to, because that's quite a jump, isn't it? Like going from, I'm going to go to them, sure, they're valuable. I can see how they're valuable. I can understand how they're valuable, but running one?
Yeah, and you don't make money either. Certainly in the early days running networking, a lot of people think anyone can get 30 of their friends to join them in a room and go, yeah, we're doing a networking group. And you think, yeah, brilliant, but you try and scale beyond that. It takes a while. Why? Because we believe that it's more important than just business referrals. So I run it with my wife, Kelly. We met at a networking group, which was itself a spin-off from BNI. So BNI is if you don't know your networking terminology, BNI is the global leader in networking. They've been around for donkey's years. We probably wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for BNI. BNI is a very rules-driven place where they call it referral networking. So you lock out your competitor, you go along, you build those relationships, And as long as you do what they tell you to do, it can lead to business opportunities, because you kind of have you done BNI yourself?
So personally, for me, and I'm going to use my words carefully here because I'm conscious we're on the record. But for me, BNI, I think for a lot of businesses can work really, really well, right? And I think BNI as a concept is, and I don't want this to become this kind of like, no, don't do BNI. BNI is a bad idea, that kind of thing. It's not. For me personally, in the chamber that I was potentially, given the opportunity to join, I don't think it was going to work for me, and that's the only reason why I personally didn't join. I found out, afterwards, that unfortunately that chamber didn't actually end up becoming a thing, but that's just due to like coverage and where those chambers are. But I do know a lot of people, especially in my industry as well, so it's not even industry specific, it's just personally my style doesn't fit the BNI model, and I'll explain why in a moment. But I know other filmmakers and I know other marketers and I know other people who do what I do or do similar to what I do who have got huge amounts of return for BNI, huge. It's incredible. The only issue I have with BNI personally is it's difficult because if I'm going to send work to someone, and I think you're going to like this because it really leans into my belief of the only kind of community driven and what only really stands for is, if I'm going to send work to James, for example, I want to make sure that the person I'm sending to James is firstly someone James actually wants, but then also, secondly, the person I'm sending actually wants what James can offer and is actually likely to be the right person for James, and also can James actually help that person specifically, right? Do I think they're going to synergize correctly, right? Because a lot in business we talk about, synergy and do people work with people, right? Because especially if you're running marketing or especially if you're doing any kind of content or anything, that person has to trust me wholeheartedly because I'm going to represent their business, because I'm going to create content that's then going to represent their business. So it's very important that we gel, we trust, there's a trust built there. I'm not saying that has to happen over like a day. Of course not. It's going to take months. But the thing is, like, the initial, like, oh, James, you should talk to so-and-so, or oh, so-and-so, you should talk to James, I think is really important. And my concern with BNI is from my experience at least, there is a general kind of a financial reward to send people inside BNI instead of outwards. So it becomes I'm going to send you work because I get financial rewarded for doing so, instead of actually you're the right person for James. That's just that's just what I found and what I believe and and the reason why I'm quite choosy with the networks I'm part of and the networks I help spotlight, but also the networks that I think are valuable for people who tackle business in a similar way to me, in the respect to how they go about getting their work and how they work with their clients and what the services they also provide as well. I mean, does that resonate? I mean, I'm very cautious to not be like, no, don't join BNI because I know there's quite a lot of that online, and there's a lot of forums that do, not exactly speak in the best light.
Look, you'd be an idiot as a leader of a networking organization to try and pretend that BNI doesn't work, because they're all around the world and they earn via their member referrals millions of dollars a day. So of course it works, but what I think once you get into it, it's the understanding is it works as long as I'm willing to do it the way that they prescribe to do it. And the challenge that they have, and we're the opposite. We broadly describe it as BNI is the stick and we're the carrot. So we'll teach you the way that we believe networking works based on genuine referrals, not because you feel pressurized to do so. Because in reality, and BNI will know this isn't to slate BNI, but if you're going to do category restricted networking, at some point, someone will they will bypass the network or the networking group because they will refer elsewhere, for the simple reason that they know that that particular person is either not a good fit, or, say it quietly, perhaps isn't very good at what they do. You can't stake your reputation on passing on a referral to someone if you know they're not going to deliver. And if you've particularly got first-hand experience, which I've had, we've been to networking where people have gone, oh yeah, I'd love you to build our website, but don't tell that guy because I'm supposed to refer to him. But take websites as an example, and I know you're in that world. So we were Squarespace. We were authorized Squarespace trainers. We still are technically. We just don't do that business anymore. What if you don't want a Squarespace site? Well, you're not going to use us, are you? Well, I want a WordPress site. Great. Well, you're going to have to refer outside the network. Why? go along with the pretense that we're going to work together anyway. So I only was based on the idea that networking is actually based on relationships. Do I need rules and protocols that get in the way of that? Some people like the structure that gives them. They know that they need to do X, Y, Z, and they'll get, the result at the end of it. Our approach was very much, we just want to go to a network with people like us that like people. We call ourselves the network that people like people, and we trust that they'll do the right thing and good things that will happen. But we'll actively say to people, you're a BNI type person, you should go there, because you're not going to get on it only. If you're just in it for referrals, you're probably not going to fare too well, because there are other networks, not just BNI, that are more suitable. So that's basically why we set up. We just didn't think it would take off as quickly as it did.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting because I got, I kind of knew when I saw about the network. I didn't choose to join, but I saw the network sort of launch, especially in Salisbury. I don't know whether it was actually the start of specifically the network then, or whether it was just like you would just launch the Salisbury part, right, of that. But it was really interesting to me, and sort of seeing how it's grown, because I've not for any specific reason just looked at it and gone, okay, this might be interesting, okay, this might not. But then business got in the way and other stuff got in the way, and it was like, okay, well, maybe one day, okay, cool. And then the time came, and I was able to come as a visitor, and etc. I really liked the format, and it was one of those things that I think the main thing I've taken from networking is actually what you put in is what you get out. Right, so if you're just going to sit there and what I'd call be a passive member of the community, it won't work for you. In my experience, it won't, because people aren't going to necessarily know about you. And this leads on to my next question. I mean, what would you say is Only's ISP specifically, right? Let's say, and this is going to be a bit salesy, but because I know there's some people who only have time to do one network, or only have time, or can only justify the time to do one network, right? I'm fortunate enough where I've got a handful of people we work with that takes a lot of the day-to-day workload off me, so I can actually go and meet people and have those conversations and have those sales conversations and be able to be in a position where I can actually talk to people about what we do without the pressure of, oh my god, I need them to hire me today. So what would you say is the unique selling point for Only, if someone's actually, I only want to join one network, and maybe I want it to be Only, potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things there, but the people first bit is the most important. So you're not going to be under any pressure to refer. It's really hard when you start networking, particularly as a small business, to go into a network and go, I don't have buying power, not at scale. I can't buy my way into this network. What I'm kind of learning as I go. So then to have pressure to bring visitors and bring referrals is a real challenge. We don't have any of that. So we're accessible. We're also the upside of not having the category lockout. We've got 300 members. You can travel freely between all of those groups. So if you're someone who's confident that your proposition is strong and you're good at building relationships, you are not restricted to just one group. The people that get Only, I mean, we don't have any contract tie-in because we don't believe in making people stay. They want to network with us because they want to. The people that stay absolutely love it because they get benefits beyond their immediate group, and it becomes a community. Networking is a funny word. It's got a lot of negative connotation, because I think there's that level of formality that we think it's about, pitching and business cards, and it's not. It should just be about community. I mean, what's your take on that word, networking? What does it mean?
I mean, networking for me is an opportunity to be part of your marketing strategy, right? I always see it as a bit of a red flag if someone's like, networking is how I get business, right? Networking is fantastic at getting you business, but it's completely random and it's not going to be religious. It's just not. I'm sorry, it's just not. It's not against any network. It's not against you. It's not against a business. It's just that the nature of networking. Networking is fantastic for getting to know people who may refer you work or may work with you in the future. The difference from my perspective as a marketer can see, marketing strategies and content and etc., they're things that will give you consistent leads, consistently if it's done correctly, but consistently. right? So I know I'm going to get 4 leads by the end of the month because of the content strategy that we have, right? For example, right? But with networking, I could have a month where I have a great load of one-to-ones that are fantastic and are amazing and are just great fun, but are absolutely nothing to do with business at all. and may lead on to business in 3 months' time or 4 months' time or 6 months' time, but not today, not tomorrow. And and I've asked other people about this, but I mean, let me ask you. I mean, when should people start networking, right? Because I think the misconception is, oh, I need work, so I'm now going to do marketing, or I'm now going to do networking, I'm now going to do something to actually, be in the position where I can get more work.
If you've got, it's a dangerous position, and it's a very good point. If you are at the point where you're not getting any business, if you go to networking, you'll give off an air of desperation and you'll probably get nothing from it. Look, networking can't solve your broken marketing strategy. If you can't, on your website and through your social media, accurately position what you do in a way that appeals to a certain audience, networking's not going to fix that for you, right? What you can do with networking, and I think it's a massively valuable thing, if you look at the definition, and I wish Sarah Phillips was here from Optima because she taught me this definition and I forgot it. The definition of marketing is about learning. I think people think marketing is just going, here's the thing, put it on the shelf, come and buy it. Marketing is about getting feedback from the potential buyers, from your audience. Well, if you post stuff on social media, you don't get that. You've got analytics and stats for your website, and you can see, bounce rate and how many people have come on your site and how many people have looked at your post. It tells me nothing about what people ultimately think about that messaging. Does it resonate? Unless you go into some real in-depth kind of feedback on a campaign, we never get that visibility. You get it at networking, and you get it within 30 seconds, because if you come to a networking event and start speaking and people are bored out of their minds, probably time to change your proposition or your pitch. And we talk about this at networking. When you're talking, notice the bit, and this is one of the beauties of online networking, is that I can see 20 other faces and their reactions at any one time. When people pick up their pen and they're writing something down, what is it that you said that sparked their imagination? Because I guarantee, and it's like listening to us now, you're not going to remember everything you've said. You will remember one thing. You can't do that with regular marketing, whereas you can go, oh, that's the thing that jumped out. Someone said the other day, Mark Canali, 8 Wealth Management, he said, I aim to make finances less English. And everyone smiled because they kind of knew what he meant. We should be able to talk about our finances because it's really important. We all know it's important, but we kind of bury our heads in the sand. Beautiful bit of marketing copy that he just said live. Well, I'd now use that in my marketing copy and then test and measure that externally. So huge strength of networking, that you can test your messaging without spending a lot of money.
Yeah, and I also think it's one of those things, if you want to be genuinely honest about look, I'm looking to change this, and especially if you've been in a network for a long time, a lot of the guys I meet through networking, I consider them friends as well as colleagues and as well as business partners and people who we could do business with. Because the thing is, you can come and say, well, when people start out, they're always like, oh my God, I don't have my 1 minute ready. I don't know how to pitch. I don't know how to, because they're very early in business, right? But I mean, what advice would you give to people who are really stressed out about the idea of, and that's the hurdle why they don't come to networking. They're like, no, I don't know. Talking about my work? No, not a thing I'm going to do. Sorry.
I'll answer this in an upside down way, because I like to give him a shout out. Paul Hill's a member of the network. He's a hypnotherapist. And he said to me once, he said, think about the person that you care about the most. So picture them in your head. How many minutes a day do you spend just thinking about how they're feeling? Right, so do that little mental calculation yourself, and you might think, oh God, if I'm being really brutally honest, actually thinking about that loved one, how much time do I spend thinking about how they're feeling? Probably a couple of minutes a day, right? And we all
probably wouldn't want to. We probably don't want to say that because we don't want to be 100% like true and honest with ourselves. But yeah, you're probably right.
But it's the truth. So if you think that about the person that you care about the most, when you go on a networking event in front of people that don't know who you are, do you really think they're going to be that bothered by what you say, really? Because I tell you what, people are less interested in what you say and more interested into how well you listen and react to them. Okay. So my advice in that upside down way, just know how to position what you do very briefly in 2 sentences. This is me. This is what I do. And I want to talk to people and get to know you because I'm trying to learn about my business. If you do that, people will lap that up, as opposed to the person that monologues, just going, this is what I do. And they try and say it 10 different ways and just bore you to pieces. So your biggest commodity, and this is again a shout out to Alan Braithwaite and the guys at Yellow Tuxedo. The one thing that everyone wants online is attention. And it's the same at networking. Everyone wants attention, right? We all want to see the reaction and the smile. We'll trade on that. If you're smart, show people that you're reacting. So, when you're online and you're doing your marketing, that's where you should spend more time interacting and engaging than you should be worrying about what you're posting, because people aren't that interested. But what they're all interested in is you as someone that's responding to them. So just go in with the attitude of, I'm not going to spend ages pitching because no one really cares, but I'm here to listen and learn. You can't really go far wrong. Has your sort of strategy and approach developed over time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, it's been one of those things where as I've changed what I want to offer and how I want to offer it, I've also been like, I use networking as a really nice testing ground, because to me, I'm like, okay, if half of these people don't get it, they're not going to really understand, or they're not going to not get it. It doesn't actually matter if it doesn't sound ideal, because it's a testing ground. The second you put it into your marketing campaign and you put money behind it, it's like then you've got to legitimize it, right? Then you've got to be in a position where you're like, well, actually, no, this is going to work, and this is how, and this is why the language is important, and so on. But at networking, you can just experiment for a month. You can just be like, so this week I'm going to be, no, don't go crazy. Don't suddenly go from being a plumber to an electrician overnight. No, but if it's like the nuances of what you do, so, for a long time I was a videographer. I'm no longer a videographer. I'm a video strategist, right? Now, normally the following question comes is, well, what is that? What does that mean, right? Because it's not something that's commonly known. And the simple answer is, I just help you understand what videos you should be creating and why. That's the simple answer. And for me, it's a gap in the market, because videographers, unfortunately, are going to be, however good you are or however good you believe you are, a phone is going to do everything you can do. That's the reality. It might be behind you right now, and we might be able to be a little bit ahead, but a phone technology is going to get as good as every camera we use, period. Simple as that. For social media use, at least. Right? The only benefit that you get from shooting on like a professional grade camera is it gives you a lot more options, it gives you a lot more control, and it gives you the ability to be able to shoot at higher resolutions and higher bit depths. Right? That's the reality. In reality, though, all of that doesn't actually matter if you're then going to put it on social media, because it's all going to get set to a current line anyway. So it's all lovely, it's all fantastic, but it doesn't matter. And that's why we focus on what is it that James is going to talk about in this video. Or what is it that the client's going to talk about in the video? Because that's what matters. That's what's going to stand you apart from, someone else, right? James number 2, James number 3, James number 6, whoever it is, right? That's what's going to matter.
The mechanics of video, I got quite tired. There was a period, I think it's calmed down now, where a lot of people, marketeers, were saying, video is the hot ticket, just turn your camera on and record yourself. Okay, look, content is the key bit, right? What it looks like, yeah, like you're saying, well, it can be, I can shoot in 4K on an iPhone. I'm never going to show it in 4K, so why bother? It's just my face at the end of the day. It's going to live and die on the content. It's also going to live and die on where I then put that tagging, SEO, if I'm going to put it on YouTube and stuff like that. So I love the fact that you've given yourself a niche, whereas you'd think it'd be easier in a way to go, well, I teach you how to do video, but I don't need to be taught how to press record. I need to be taught how to make a video that's going to do anything useful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, doing a video is not technically difficult. being confident on a video and talking about what you know and how you know and why you know is the hard bit. And that's what people struggle with sometimes, and why we specialize in helping people feel comfortable when they are on a professional set, so to speak, right? There is merit for professional sets, and there'll always be a world where if it looks more professional, the perception from your ideal client or consumer is going to be, oh, I'm going to take them more seriously because they look and sound better. But that's, to be honest, because phone technology hasn't got to the point where it can do that yet. That's the only reason. It's not because it's miraculously special. And don't get me wrong, I pay a significant amount of money on every shoot to bring in someone who's better than me at video, multiple times. And the reason why is because I know where my strengths lie. And I think this is one of the things that we can, probably goes into networking, but also goes into anything in business. Understand what you're really good at. Understand firstly what you enjoy at, and then what are you good at? Actually, transactionally good at. What is going to result in you making more money? What I found very quickly is I'm very good at talking to people, building relationships with people, and helping them understand how to utilize video as a tool. Okay? Does that mean I have to film it? No. Does that mean I have to edit it? No. Right?
That point of niching is so important, because look, if you think of it in networking terms, and most of us on the, your listeners will be service providers, location agnostic, doesn't matter where you are now, because you can just deliver a service. Now, if you start to umbrella them out, most of them will fit under one of probably about 5 categories: marketing, coaching, finance, and there's probably a few sort of personal development areas. So if you go to a networking event, and this will also translate into online, and say, I'm a coach, I can help you get results, you are one of about 10 trillion people that's offering the same thing, okay? And you see it much more clearly when you go to networking, because you're up against other people doing the same thing. So if you're going to be a coach, you need to tell me the reason you want to work with me is because I've worked with so-and-so that does similar to you, and I've managed to double their income in 6 months. You've got to give me a hook. I'll give you a great example of the power of niching. Mike Sharp, we know him within ONLE as the Facebook ads guy, right? Mike is a highly experienced marketeer. He can do email campaigns, he can do website copy, he can do everything to do with marketing. But because and if he just went in and went, hi, I'm Mike, I do marketing, I don't think necessarily he's going to get some result, but that's so broad, it doesn't resonate with people. It's just, it's another marketing guy.
Oh, you're another one of those people, yeah.
Mike comes in and goes, hi, I'm Mike, I'm the Facebook ads guy. And people go, oh, no, I need to get better at Facebook ads. I'll have a chat with Mike. So Mike does their Facebook ads for them. He gets a result. And what does he end up doing? All of the other broad set marketing stuff that he can already do and could have done all along, but it's just giving him that icebreaker. You've found your niche, video strategist. I show you how to get value out of making video, because making video in itself delivers 0 value. It's the same thing. So I think for your listeners, what's the bit that you're going to do to make my life better or make me more money?
Yeah, or save your client time, right? That's the key for me. Why should you hire us instead of doing it yourself? Well, the simple answer is we can do it probably 5 times, maybe 6 times faster than you can, right? Simple as that. It will sound better, it will look better, and it will be done in a 1/6 of the time. And time you don't even have to sit there looking over my shoulder as well, right? So the only time that a client really needs to give to us is the consulting time with me, and then a day. That's it. Everything else is done when they can be doing networking, when they can be doing meetings, when they can be doing whatever else their day-to-day requires to bring their business, move their business forward. And that's one of the main ISPs that I think content creators have, is we are specifically skilled in understanding what our specific niche in the content is. In my case, video. In others is maybe audio or etc. or copywriting or whatever it may be that they're doing, or photography or whatever. It's one of those things where why would you hire someone in if it's going to save you time, right? And everyone, whether you earn £1 million or whether you earn 5p, you still only got 24 hours in a day. It doesn't matter. That's the main currency that we all have, and that's why I'm really fortunate and I'm really grateful for people who do give me their time in any context, right? Because they value me enough to give me an hour of their time, or half an hour of their time, or 20 minutes, even like 5 minutes of their time, because people underestimate how much they can do in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. And going back to the networking equation as well, you talked about people coming in that are quite new to networking. If you can just like someone's post or share it or comment on it, that costs you nothing. You're on the platform anyway. Do it, because people will notice that. It is a great way. Everyone's online trying to get attention. Give a bit of attention and you'll get attention back. I think it's so important, because you're right. Time. I mean, what's happened to time in the last? We're supposed to have more of it, but why does it feel like we've got less? What's your view on that?
I mean, I'll answer your question in a sec, but I just want to add into one of the things we talk about in marketing a lot is trying to build a community around what you do, right? So people always ask me, well, how do you go about doing that? Well, you've got to add value in their content as well, right? You've got to, as you say, add comments, likes, shares, whatever you're going to do. You've got to be seen to be that person who can give an opinion that is not necessarily agreed on as well, right? Like if I think something's good, I'll say it's good. But also if I think you could improve something, I'll tell you why you can improve it. And what I've actually found is when I say that, and I'm always honest, when I give people a compliment, they take it more as a compliment, because then I'm known for, I only give a compliment when it's actually true. Right? Because I think a misconception when it comes to commenting is, oh my God, this post is great, but I haven't actually read the post. For
So
example.
true.
I mean, in regards to the time, I think it's all perception, right? Like time is something which you have to be quite ruthless with, I think, if you want to be perceivably successful, right? Quote unquote successful. That's very subjective in the definition of it, but let's say you're earning enough to do whatever you love for a living, right? Let's use that because that's quite common for a lot of people. And I would say for me, it's about understanding specifically when something is not worth your time. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, because, like, for example, if I think I can't help the right person, or I don't think I'm the right person for that client, I'll say to that client, it could be midway through a call, we could be mid-conversation about marketing. If I go, I don't think we're going to gel, I won't waste your time, I won't waste my time, I'll just say to you, look, I don't think that we're connecting right now. I don't really think there's going to be potential here, or I don't think there's, I don't think you get what we do, or I don't, etc. Would you be interested in talking to this person, or would you be interested in talking to that person, and saying, actually, no, I don't think you're the right person, because what you're doing is you're actually respecting that person more, because people will always respect a no, right? As long as it has a reason why, and they'll actually respect you more as a business owner, right? If you say no, and if you're honest and truthful. And I think one of the ISPs of like a lot of business owners at the moment is that they find it very difficult to be completely honest, right? Like if I don't get your service or your product or whatever you're selling to me, I'll just go, I don't get it, because I don't. If I don't get it, I don't get it. But then like I think the reason why people do that is because they're like, how is the person going to react? What if I hurt their feelings? What if I upset them, etc. Right? And that's never the goal, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, the goal is never I'm going to make James feel upset because only is not what I want it to be. No, hopefully, I would believe if I had some concerns, or I was like, oh James, have you thought about adding this to the network? Have you thought about doing this? That you would come back to me and go, actually, Colin, that's a fantastic idea. Let's see what the logistical challenges is in potentially implementing it, right? Is it that costs like thousands of pounds that we just don't have? Okay, that's the logistical challenge, right? Okay, fine. So then we need to find a way to make the money, or etc. Like, is it maybe not a good idea, or maybe we should ask the rest, maybe we should announce it as something that we're thinking of doing. And ironically enough, it's just jumped into my mind. I mean, I don't know, because I sort of found this out indirectly because I wasn't actually in the live stream. But firstly, congratulations on going to the US. Firstly, and then secondly, I mean, what kind of made you want to do that? Because that's quite a big thing, right? That must have taken some planning, and there must have been a lot of thought around that. Because or did you just wake up one day and go, you know what I want to do today? Let's just take the networking group to America.
It's always been, no, it wasn't like that. Because it's always been in the plan. 2018, we started ONLE, but it was always in the back. We got married in New York. There's a cool story there that we got married under the Brooklyn Bridge, and the guy that married us was a rabbi, Stephen, awesome guy, just met us there, we said riding over the Brooklyn Bridge in our wedding gear, if this guy that we've met online doesn't turn up, we're just two people in our wedding gear that are not getting married today. It was that, tenuous. And it turned out he did, thankfully. Amazing time, amazing ceremony, just us. We ended up building 3 websites for Stephen. So we can claim quite legitimately that not only did we meet at networking, we were networking on our wedding day, because if you're open to conversations, they're all around you. You just don't always pay attention. So that's the point there. So New York's got a special place in our heart. And we always had this idea. When we launched ONLE in 2018, it stands for Online Networking Live Experiences, because we were doing in-person networking. We saw the value of it and the power of it. We also saw that people didn't describe it as such, but they were doing networking online. If you've ever talked to anyone on LinkedIn, that's networking. Right? People think that LinkedIn's just this sort of marketing channel. It's not. It's a conversational networking place, and that's when it starts to deliver actual value. So our idea was, what happens if we combine the power of in-person networking with online? Okay, so this is way pre-lockdown. This was always in the plan. All that the lockdown did is just accelerated the acceptance of the power of online networking, because it was always a prerequisite that if you were going to do business with people over, say, a value, and I'm making this up, but you'll get why I'm saying it. If it's more than 50 quid, I'm going to want to meet you. That was always a prerequisite, and it tended to then be based on locality. So if you're going to make a video for me, I want you to be down the road or a website or whatever. That's gone. Because if you find the right person who is comfortable in that medium, they don't care where you are. They just want the right service with the right person. Okay. So that leads us naturally to the point of, okay, if that's true, if it is no longer prerequisite to meet people in person, why are we only networking based on this sort of notion of a 20-mile radius? We're doing that because we're living in the legacy of how we used to network. What would happen if we picked this idea up and said, we know there's people in New York that love to trade here, and we would love to trade with them. All that's lacking is the forum to bring those two parties together. Let's create a networking event and see if it works. It's yet to be proven, of course. It might not work, but the feedback that we're getting, the conversations that we're having, people are like, yeah, I want to be there. And I know people in New York that will want to be there too.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I love the idea as the concept. Not, again, I'm in the same boat as you. No idea if it's going to work. The only thing I can see is finding a time that works, because of the time zone issue, which is normally I can only imagine that's probably the only reason why it hasn't been done before, potentially, right? It's going to be kind of a semi-inconvenient time for someone, right? No matter where you do it, it's going to either be inconvenient for us or inconvenient for them, no matter which way you cut it.
I think that's better now, because we're used to doing particularly online networking at different times of the day. I mean, networking used to be 7 a.m. That was it. Before work, you go and do your networking. Obviously, a US-UK crossover ain't working at that point because they don't want to network at 2 a.m. But if you think about it now, so our New York group is 2:30 UK time. Arguably not optimum for networking, but then people can kind of build their day around it. And that's 9:30 because it's only a 5-hour difference. So it isn't, and we do an evening group, 6:30 UK time. Well, again, that's midday, 1 o'clock, not a problem. So once you've got around that, and the fact that you then use platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram to stitch together those relationships, there is absolutely potential for those people to get to know each other, build affinity, and do business together. We've got to prove that, but yeah.
Especially if it's like not something that's, the only reason why it might be a problem for us specifically is because there will be a point where we actually have to go to that person, right?
Why?
Especially if you're if the money's there and the job's there to do, why not? We'll do it. But the point that I'm making there is it's a harder sell if you have to go there, right? Because it is literally the other side of the world. But not against it. But especially if you are a coach, or if you are a web designer, or if you are something which is not tangibly related to the location, it's incredible, because suddenly the entire world is your client list, or potentially could be your client list, right? Especially if you do like online training, or you do, as I say, coaching or web design, or even graphic design. etc. Anything that doesn't need a tangible like location, you can do it all like digitized. It's yeah.
And that's about 80% of our demographic. Look, if you're a plumber or a DIY guy, yeah, probably not recommending that you book on. But I mean, Claire is a garden maintenance company, Claire Hartnell, but she's now doing online consultancy to give you a plan for what you can do to do your own garden. And she'll tell you what, because this partly came off the back of me, because I said to her, I don't mind grafting. I've got a garden. Anything I've ever bought dies because I don't know what ones are meant to go in the shade, and I can't be bothered to learn it. Give me a plan. Well, you can do that online. And I think once you get over that mental block of, oh yeah, but you've got to meet people in order to deepen the relationship and do business with people, once you realize that that's a myth, and fewer people are believing that anymore, because I think we're seeing so many examples of people trashing that idea. We've been talking at the groups this month, what's your preference, in person or on Zoom? And more people than you think are saying actually Zoom. And it isn't just efficiency. I just prefer it because I can control the environment. It's just as effective. There are people that are saying, yeah, but I love the energy of meeting in the room. Well, I'm not going to try and convince you otherwise. All I would say is it doesn't, just because that's your preference, doesn't mean you can't get a result as long as both parties are in synergy. I mean, what's your furthest sort of client that you've worked with?
I mean, I've been quite fortunate because our clients are now spread basically all over the UK because I do a lot of strategy, right? So for that reason, I'm not location tied as long as it's only strategy based. The complications become if they want us to do the production side, but again, it's not. It's a very small logistical hurdle we can overcome. It's called how do we get to you easily and cost effectively. That's about the only conversation. And how do we make the day and the time and the energy which we're spending on creating the content for you actually worth it, right? Like if we're going to come over to America, for example, then we should probably be there to create a significant amount of content. Otherwise, it's not worth anyone's time, right? Personally. Right, but I think it's really interesting because I think, and as you were talking about, what's your preference over like in person or Zoom, but the things that jumped to mind for me were like, actually, for most people it doesn't matter. I think the things you need to go into the conversations with are the same though, right? You need to be honest, you need to be truthful, you need to, be able to understand, can you help a business, and be honest, can you help a business or not? And also something that I've decided or started really saying to clients is like, look, I can't guarantee you anything, right? I can't. I just can't. I can make it quite likely or potentially quite likely or pretty likely. It's not a guarantee, right? And that way it removes the stress from that marketer, or removes the stress from me, or removes the stress to an extent, because if the client does decide to move forward, I'm not promising you anything outside of I'm going to do the best job I possibly can. That might result in you putting in an amount of money and it times in by 4 for you. Okay, fantastic. If not, it might actually be that it doesn't generate you any more revenue and you just spent all this money for no reason. But we won't know that until we try it. And if the reason is like, if that's it's not working, there'll be a reason why it's not working. Is it the content? Is it the strategy? Is it how we're going about it? Is it like, what's the issue, right? There'll be an issue. We just need to find it, right? Because the medium has been proven to work thousands and thousands and thousands of times over. Because if there's anyone who's using it successfully, then it works. It's just about working out how to use it. I mean, that's kind of like just my thought process on that. But I mean, that was kind of everything I wanted to discuss today. I mean, is there anything I'd like to add on the end of the podcast, an opportunity for you to ask me a couple of things, or chuck in a comment, or chuck in a topic for us to discuss for a couple of minutes just before we wrap up? Because, I've had interviews, I've been interviewed in the past, and I'm like, please get me to ask a question at the end because I've got one that I'm dying to ask. So do you have one, or is there like anything you want to throw in for us to discuss for a couple of minutes?
I'd probably just mention the mental health side of it, because we mentioned this before going into it, that for me is the overlooked bit of networking. And I nearly said an intangible. It's a very tangible thing. I mean, I think for me, I see very clearly that one of the problems with people working for themselves, running businesses, is that they can become disconnected. You can end up just behind your computer. Social media can become quite antisocial, particularly if you're in that broadcast and scanning mode rather than having interactions. And I think for me, a huge important part of ONLE is how it's providing people connection where they feel comfortable, supported. If that doesn't float your boat, if you just think, well, I don't care about that, I'm just there to get the business, that's part of that discussion about, well, you need to then find the right network or the right marketing channel for you. I just wanted to mention that really, because I just think it should be a bigger thing, and it's not really talked about. It becomes it's business rather, but we're people first and foremost. You can't avoid that.
Exactly. I want to get to know James before I get to know why ONLE is important, to be honest. And I think it's really important to talk about because, mental health in general, like there's some networking events I still go to, and my mental health like is like, I don't really want to do this, but I still need to, or I still want to, or I still feel like it actually, but I think it's about being okay with the idea of it's in a community where it doesn't matter. Exactly. I mean, that kind of builds off a little bit about the 1 minute that we talked about earlier. It's actually about being in an environment where it doesn't matter if you screw up your 1 minute, because no one's going to crucify you, because you're the only one that's going to know, oh, I shouldn't have said that, right? So if a listener's going to take anything away from this, I would say just say whatever you're going to say confidently as if it's correct. Whether it is or not doesn't matter, because only you know it's wrong, right? You can always analyze it afterwards and go, actually, well, maybe that wasn't the best way to portray that. Okay, fine. So the next time I go to networking, I'll say it this way. People ask me, oh, how are you going to introduce, or do you know what you're going to say for your 1 minute? I kind of have a rough idea, right? I have a kind of, in my head, I have the couple of things that I'll go down. But outside that, no idea. I'll just go with what flows. I just start talking and see what happens, right? And my heart's not set on, oh, I have to cover this, this, and this. As long as it's entertaining enough so the person, as you say, is not falling asleep. But, and it's the same when you give a presentation. It's the same when you do anything. Something which I think is valuable really quickly to cover is just the educational side of ONLE as well. Because it's not just, in my opinion anyway, it's not just a networking group. A community. It's also from, how did you kind of come up, what is for people who don't know, what is the educational side? What does it do? How does it work? Etc.
We do a monthly education video where I interview a business subject expert. So me, with my journalistic background, I can ask questions and I can get cut to the chase, because I think there's so much surface information out there, isn't there, where you can learn the basics of this, that, and the other, but specific to this networking audience, how do we use Instagram correctly? How do we use Zoom intelligently? All these topics and we make it conversational, because no one wants to be kind of preached to or monologued to. So we kind of present, look, there's the free takeaways. You can watch the video if you want. If you don't want to watch it, we're just going to get into a group conversation, because I learn as much from what people say off the back of it as I do from doing the original interview. And this is, there you go, it's a bit hippie-ish, isn't it? But it's the power of the collective. Together, well, it's sounding quite cliched now, but together we learn as a collective, don't we? And that is a really powerful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you very much for the time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed it. A lot of people say afterwards, yeah, that was really fun. Really cool. So I hope that was the case. And where can people sort of find out more information? Maybe they're interested in potentially joining or coming along as a visitor. I mean, how open is the network in that respect?
Yeah, you can visit twice. You can try 2 different groups. It's all online, so you're welcome to come along and just have a look. No pressure to join. It's got to be right for you. And it's just the only.network. Only is spelt with an E. So the only, ONLE.network is the web address. Come and say hello. And thank you. I've really enjoyed it. What a good conversation that kind of dipped in and out of places. I've learned a bit about you. You've learned about me. Brilliant.
It's exciting, isn't it? Any final thoughts? Anything you want to mention? Anything you want to say? You've got 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 seconds. Say anything you like.
I've never felt under more pressure, because I've literally got nothing. That's the worst answer you've ever had, isn't it? Good question.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Don't worry.
Thank you
so much. thank you ever so much for coming back and joining me, ladies and gents. I hope you did enjoy this episode as much as I did recording it and interviewing James and getting to know a little bit more about ONLE and the him as well. I didn't know his background at all, so I thought it'd be great to bring him on the podcast to create some content for you guys, but also for me to get to know him as well a little bit more. So thank you ever so much for joining me once again. I will see you very, very soon, where we'll be interviewing someone else very exciting, and yeah, I'll see you very, very soon.